Alright, Hare Krishna. I'm speaking from Valsad to devotees in Bruno. For all of you who may not have heard of Valsad, it's a town in South Gujarat, and Bruno is, I believe, the second largest city in the Czech Republic. So congratulations to devotees who are pioneering in these smaller towns and villages, taking the difficulty to take the Sankirtana movement to smaller places. So, the questions. The first question on this list I'll get back to afterward. Question 2. Common practice in Czech Republic is to use flowers for several days as a decoration on the altar if they still look fresh. Is that okay? I do not feel completely comfortable with it. But I presume that it's being spoken about putting flowers in vases with water, which isn't done traditionally in India. You just put the flower without water on the altar, and the rule is that whatever flowers are there, they have to be removed before sunrise the next morning. That's the rule. Of course, in India, usually the flowers fade because it's a hot country, and generally there are plenty of flowers also. But in Czech Republic, which is cold and miserable a lot of the year, especially at this time of year, in February, and flowers may not be much available. They might be quite expensive. So I don't see any harm in keeping them in a vase or vase, as is said in British English. You know? And keep them for a few days. In fact, there was an incident that's recorded of Srila Prabhupada, I believe in Los Angeles. He became upset that why the flowers in the vase are being changed daily. He said, it's not necessary, he said. He became somewhat upset with devotees for doing that. Well, taking prasadam in the house of one grihastha, they were not used to close the altar of Gaunitai deities while honoring prasadam. They told us there is no harm of eating in front of Gaunitai because they like to see devotees honoring prasadam. This they have supposedly heard from Salem devotees. I have never heard this. Could you please comment? Well, even if they heard it from Salem devotees, that's not equivalent to Shastra Pramana. It's quite clear that one does not eat in front of deities. And many people say, we often hear devotees do all kinds of things in front of, or in the presence of Gaunitai devotees, or they fail to worship, and they say, it doesn't matter, it's only Gaunitai. As if Gaunitai are something you're supposed to just offend as a principle. No, this is not proper to honor prasadam in front of deities. It's quite clear from Shastra and from tradition. In question number 4, if a devotee abandons his wife because he fell in love with another married woman and he starts to live with her, to which extent should he be accepted by other devotees and the community of Vaishnavas? Is there any way to rectify this act? Can he lead a kirtan in the temple and so on? Actually, this phrase, fall in love, you hear it often among devotees in the West, as if it's, which we didn't used to hear, as if it's some kind of natural, normal process, although the philosophical understanding, according to Bhagavad Gita, is that what's called falling in love is falling in Maya, actually. Falling in love, what does that mean? In the mythology of the material world, there's such a thing as falling in love. But it's just Maya. That's all. Unless it's between Radha and Krishna. And they're eternally in love. They're always falling in love. So, obviously what is being described here is extremely sinful. Again, unfortunately it's become so commonplace that it's come to be accepted as normal among devotees in the West. And that's the symptom of Kali Yuga, that people do sinful things and it becomes so normal that you just can't blame everyone for it, and it just becomes accepted. Just like, and I'm sure I'll get plenty of flack for this, for saying this even, but sex outside of marriage is sinful, in whatever form it is. And homosexuality, even though it is, there's some idea to marry homosexuals somehow or other, but it is any sex which is not, any sexual act which is not for the sake of reproduction of children within marriage is sinful. So to what extent should he be accepted by other devotees? Well, as a matter of pragmatism, it's, in the name of being understanding and so many other things, it's often accepted in the West, but I would say that it shouldn't be encouraged. Is there any way to rectify this act? Well, obviously, you can't force anyone and to do what they should do. We have one book which we distribute called The Laws of Nature. I mean, ultimately, the laws of nature rectify if one acts sinfully. What is sin? This word is also, the word sin is practically becoming an what's the word? An anarchic word. It's a word that people don't use that word anymore due to the influence of Mayavad. They think there's no difference. Whatever you do is okay. Everything is wonderful. And due to Mayavad and atheism. So this is actually a sinful act to run off with someone else's wife. It's extremely sinful. Unfortunately, it's become common in the modern age. Could such a person lead a kirtan in the temple and so on? Well, you might get different opinions on this, but as you're asking my opinion, I'd say no way. Lead a kirtan, give a class, what are you going to speak? If someone's not following the even basic human dharma, then how can they take the position of a spiritual teacher? Question number 5. Is there any authorized standard of purity for cooking in the kitchen regarding our clothing? In our yatra it is usually set up as a standard to have only completely clean clothing. One is not supposed to cook in the clothes in which he ate or passed water. I didn't see these standards so strict in India. I personally follow that, but I'm not sure what to set up here as a standard, especially when we are worshipping Guru Gauranga altar in the preaching center. Yes, Srila Prabhupada said for preaching centers to have a Guru Gauranga altar. That means a picture of the Panchatattva and a picture of Srila Prabhupada. And that's all. No deity worship as such. In India, these standards are not followed so strictly, certainly for deity worship. That the standard should be uniform everywhere. Well, if you follow that, very good. If you follow a good standard, better to keep up a good standard as far as possible. As far as possible in a preaching center, then good standards should be followed. Otherwise, where's the preaching? Preaching isn't only by talking high things to people, but by one's behavior also. So these are hygienic rules. They're rules of purity and they're also rules of hygiene. So as far as possible, that may be followed. Though if you only have 1 or 2 devotees and you have many things to do, then it may be difficult to insist on that. Then the question which I'm going to spend more time on, so-and-so Prabhu and so-and-so number 2 Prabhu would like to prepare for second initiation. How shall I prepare them? Do you have some special requirements? I am aware of those standards presented on bvks.com. Yeah, well, those are the special requirements. We do not have any Brahminical tests in our yatra. Well, I suggest they are. If you don't, then they should be instituted, because someone who's going to be Brahminically initiated, they should be seen if they actually have knowledge of what is in Shastra. Regarding this, I want to speak a little bit more about this, because actually recently I've had several requests or trying to force me to give Brahmin initiation, but I'm becoming, I never was very liberal with this, but I'm becoming less inclined to give Brahminical initiation just here, there and everywhere. Now, apparently, within the Gauriya Maths, they say that this what they don't speak actually of first initiation and second initiation. They speak of Harinam and Dikha in Bengali, Diksha. So what we call first and second initiation it's not actually first and second initiation. Strictly speaking, one is initiated once, but there are, you could say there are levels of initiation. So they say that Diksha is a total necessity, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't say that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam kalo nastyeva gatiranyata. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always emphasized the chanting of the holy names. And in fact, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, Dikha puras chaja vidhi, opekha nakare. I can't remember the second line. But it means that the effect of chanting the holy names, don't wait for initiation and other purificatory activities. Srila Prabhupada called it Brahminical initiation, and my understanding of this, and it requires some more research, and it is an important principle, is that Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish Varnashram society, and he wanted to show that he wanted his disciples to be the spiritual leaders of human society, to take the role of Brahmins as spiritual leaders. And in his discussion about Varnashram, he said that it's not that he said several times, not necessary that everyone be initiated as a Brahmin. That anyway, the position of a Vaishnava is more than that of a Brahmin, but someone's ploughing the fields for Krishna, in Krishna's service, that is a higher position than someone who knows so many Shastras but is not a Vaishnava. That is the conclusion of Shastra. So Srila Prabhupada didn't want everyone to, he didn't think that, and he also said that Prabhupada said that the link between Guru and disciple is established at Harinam. So, as I understand it, that this second, what we call second initiation or Brahminical initiation, is specifically for those who are preaching, teaching, cooking, performing deity worship. It may not be, who are taking actually Brahminical activities. It's not necessary for everyone. So, I sometimes give Brahminical initiation because the temple authorities want me to, so someone can do the deity worship, although it's become quite common nowadays that even devotees without Brahminical initiation do deity worship, which is completely bogus actually. That was never Srila Prabhupada's standard or the standard of tradition or Shastra. So, but then I see that many, especially in the West, they're given Brahminical initiation to perform deity worship. They do so for a short time, and then they just go away, especially Matajis, young women, they're in the temple, and they do deity worship for a short time, and then they get married, which all women should get married. That's the general prescription. So, what's the point? Just like someone is pushing me pushing me. I want Brahmin initiation, but what's the point? I mean, if someone's pushing you for Brahmin initiation, that means that they haven't understood the point. Prabhupada, he said that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced this to show people that Vaishnavas that actually the status of being a Brahmin is included in that of a Vaishnava. Because people think, well, Brahmins are very high status, but if a devotee thinks, I want Brahminical initiation so I can be recognized as a being of a higher status, then that means that they're not at all qualified, because the idea of being recognized is not Brahminical. It's not that of a Vaishnava at all. It's a mundane consideration. And I see sometimes that some devotees, they've awarded Brahminical initiation, and others are not, and they think, oh, if we feel offended, why didn't I get it? You know, I'm as good. I'm not any less. What's wrong with me? As if they think that that's a recognition that you're something more. Well, some devotees, yeah, some devotees are more steady, some devotees are more Brahminical by nature, and as I understand, Srila Prabhupada wanted to recognize that. He wanted to divide society into Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. That's not a spiritual division. It can be that one is performing what we could call Shudra service, but is doing it very sincerely and is very pleasing to Krishna. And someone is doing Brahminical service, but the Brahmin is the sign of a neophyte. In one place, I believe, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that's the sign of a neophyte, because they're engaged in deity worship. Whereas the status of a Vaishnava is higher. So these are complex discussions, but I see some people feel offended, and it's going to be very difficult to establish Varnashram as Srila Prabhupada wanted that. If people are, everyone thinks, I have to be a Brahmin, but not everyone can be a Brahmin. Not everyone is. If someone's steadily performing preaching service over many years, or has that Brahminical nature, inclined to study, discuss philosophy, is very clean, very steady in sadhana, then such a person may be recognized. But it's not even that much necessary. And actually, especially in the West, who cares whether you're a Brahmin or not? How do they care? Even in India nowadays, people don't care that much. In India, it's how much money have you got? And if you can speak English, that's considered prestigious. And what is your educational qualification? So, no one cares. In fact, there are communities in India which they're rioting to be recognized as the lowest status in society. It's become such a funny thing because they make this reservation. The lowest status, they get special privileges by law, and so they're recently in Rajasthan, right? There was some community. They were rioting and stopping all the trains running and everything. We want to be recognized as the lowest class, so that you can get facilities. And whereas on the other hand, you get people who are born as Brahmins in Tamil Nadu. I saw some report they're carrying dead bodies, which is the lowest caste of people used to do, because it's very difficult for people born as Brahmins if they happen to be poor and uneducated, because they're discriminated against. Everything's become reverse. So, what should they do to prepare for Brahminical initiation? Actually, in one letter, Srila Prabhupada said if they don't come to the standard within 6 months, then don't give them Brahminical initiation. And, like I say, why bother? It's like, but then if you don't get it, then other devotees say, oh, what's wrong with you? Why doesn't your guru give Brahmin initiation? People think that, devotees think that it's just you start chanting, and then you get first initiation, and after some time, automatically, you get second initiation. But why should that be? then what's the meaning of it, actually? Of course, you could say that those mantras have some help and this and that. That's another consideration. But the main mantra, believe it or not, if you ever listen to the classes or read the books, is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, that's the main one we should chant. So what should they do to prepare? What should these devotees do to prepare for second initiation? They should prepare for going back home, back to Godhead, by chanting their rounds very nicely. And then if they're recommended for that, then we'll see. But again, you see, if someone's work, there's another letter from Prabhupada in which he's working in a job, and then Prabhupada said, what's the meaning of getting Brahma initiation? And they're working in some company which is not the activity of a Brahmin, and they're most likely they don't have time for Brahminical activity. All day they're spending in some non-Brahminical activity. As a Vaishnava, their situation is more than that of a Brahmin, but their activity is not like that of a Brahmin. So if we want to show that this is how Brahmins should be for the sake of preaching, then why give it to people who are not engaged?